it's time to use our imagination a little bit. If I had told you when I was a student 20 years ago in this university, back in 1996, I was doing my master's, that we would gonna have solar planes circumnavigating the Earth without having the need to refuel. You would have told me I was crazy, probably. But we do have them now, and they're still on diapers, and of course there's a lot of research to do about this, but things have changed quite a bit. Meta introduced me, but I would be remiss if I don't say a few words about my sponsors. I am the co-chair of the Sustainable Energy Initiative of the Faculty of Environmental Studies of York University. And we do work on sustainable energy. Meta asked me if I was Argentinian. No, I'm Bolivarian. In fact, I come from the nation of Bolivar, which is South America. I was born in Chile, and the city where I was born looks like that now. But when I was born, it was all farms. The condominiums that you see, that's how old I've become. Now I go back and I go, who took the creeks away and the mountains and everything? Because we used to have mountains. They actually flattened them to make the buildings you see there. And that's why I don't like toxic energy, because you can see the cloud at the back. That didn't used to exist either. And it's a permanent feature now, because people burn a lot of fossil fuels for transportation, and I'll speak about that for a second. But now I live in a more happy environment. I live in a solar house that looks like that. And you have a question, yeah?
Are those mountains in the background there?
That's the Andes, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So what they flattened were the little hills that were here, that they flattened to build condominiums. So now I live in Toronto. That's my solar house, our solar house, and Dorothy, a friend of ours, has been there, and she can testify. And the reason you can see, we have also solar thermal. We have a lot of photovoltaic systems. And the reason why we put a lot of it on the wall is because, as you know, here in Ontario, we got a problem called snow. And that wall installation allows me to generate electricity even if there's been a lot of snow. And the next step is to put all those solar systems you see in the wall in a battery system. At the moment, I have a battery system. It's a battery on wheels. It's a 100% electric vehicle. But I want to also put batteries in the basement to be able to help my neighbors should there be another power failure in the near future. And these are some of the publications. I publish mostly in English, but I do also publish in my native tongue of Spanish. And I'm also hoping soon to create a new publication in Portuguese. Some of the things that we've been doing that are germane to the conversation I want to have with you today are, how many of you knew that there is an International Renewable Energy Agency? There's a few of you that know that, and I'm happy. And I always, when I ask this question here in Canada, I say, look, don't feel bad about it if you don't. The United States belongs to this agency, Mexico, Chile, Argentina, Costa Rica, and 172 other countries. But Canada does not belong to it. And so you'll be understood for not knowing it exists. And Stéphane Dion tried to pass a motion in the parliament in Ottawa so our country would join this agency, but well, the motion didn't fly just yet. The other thing that we're doing, we help create, I belong to the World Council of Renewable Energy. We help create the International Renewable Energy Agency. That's one of the big achievements as an activist. Meta say I'm an activist, and that's one of the big achievements of my tenure as an activist. And now we're doing a new campaign. It's called 100% Renewables, and I'll talk to you further about that in a few moments. I'm not gonna do too much more explanations, but you can see a photo of graduates that have come from all over the world. We offer training on a software called Red Screen. If you're interested in energy, that's the best software that you can get. And we do the training in English for Canada with Natural Resources Canada at the Faculty of Environmental Studies. The training in French, it's done in Varennes, Quebec. And in that photo, you can see people from pretty much every continent in one of our graduating classes. The other thing that we're involved, that those of you that want to become more involved on renewable energy may want to pay attention, it's the learning partnership of the International Renewable Energy Agency. I don't have access to the internet right now, but if I was to click on that little symbol there, website would open. And just remember 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 letters, IRELP. Put that in Google and that'll take you to the International Renewable Energy Learning Partnerships. Especially if you're interested in getting in the business of renewable, we offer scholarships, we offer training, jobs, manuals, everything. And it's one of the things that makes me the most proud, because one of my former master's students, a Canadian, got hired to do this in Abu Dhabi. So that's proof that Canadians are good people, even though our country has decided not to be part of this agency. And we do knowledge mobilization events on a regular basis. I just came back from a knowledge mobilization event in Montreal, and I'll talk a little bit about that. And the week before, I was in Germany with that guy, Dirk Uwe Sauer, talking about storage of renewable energy, and I'll try to touch that as well. Okay, so these are the two key essential points that I want to discuss during my talk. And at this point, if I had access to the internet, I would ask you to go to a URL and I would do a survey, an online survey, to get your views. But because I'm low tech today, I'm just gonna ask you to show your hand. So how many of you are very happy with nuclear power and think it's a very good idea? If you could lift up your arm. How many of you would want to know a little bit more about nuclear power? So, okay, and another question would be, how many of you feel confident that you know a lot about renewable energy? Technology, policy, storage? So a few of you know a little bit, so it'd be good to expand a little further. So I'll try to talk as much as possible, as many things as possible. Let's start by, I beg your pardon? Okay, so at the moment, the key point that I want to make is how much of our energy in the planet, primary energy, comes from nuclear power. That was the first question that I asked you. And as you can see, or maybe not, from that chart, the bulk of energy, primary energy, comes from fossil fuels, then renewables, then nuclear power. And this information, it's all available on this URL. Every year we write a report, and the next one will be available in about maybe a month or so. So I'm using 2014 data at the moment. Yep.
Is that for Canada?
For the planet, for the entire planet, yeah. So here you can see the same slide, but a little bit focus on the nuclear part. So 2.6% of primary energy is from nuclear power at the moment. And you can see in this slide which countries have significant or some proportion of their electricity needs being satisfied from nuclear power. At this point, I realize that the font is very small. I want to just emphasize two places for a number of reasons: the United Kingdom and Canada, for two reasons. Number one, they both share about the same penetration of nuclear power, and of course, they're both Anglo-Saxon jurisdictions. Of course, no offense to the other languages spoken in the UK and Canada, but people speak English in both countries, and there's a lot of cultural similarities. This slide that you see there, that I realize you cannot see at all the details, basically shows the nuclear installations that exist in the United Kingdom. I'm not going to spend too much time on that. What I want to spend some time is talking about the United Kingdom had for many years something called the Sustainable Development Commission. What you see here is a screenshot of the website of the Sustainable Development Commission. That commission was closed a few years ago in a very similar fashion what happened here in Canada with the National Roundtable on the economy and the environment. The reason why I bring this up is because, in my personal opinion, the most comprehensive study about nuclear power was made by this commission, which was a commission that the UK government created to provide advice to its ministers and the United Kingdom on matters of importance for that country. It was a very comprehensive study that was made up of 8 papers. And you can see on the left hand some of the topics that each of those papers dealt with. So 8 volumes, the most comprehensive study of its kind ever done by humankind. Nothing before or after has topped the quality or the comprehensiveness of this research. What I want to touch upon with you is some of the conclusions of the research. So basically, they raise some very important conclusions based on these 8 comprehensive papers. Number one was that due to intergenerational issues, nuclear power presented a conundrum for sustainability. As you remember, the definition of sustainability, the most used one, the Brundtland Commission one, talks about the idea of not hurting present or future generations. And their judgment was that in terms of intergenerational issues, nuclear power did not meet the test of sustainability. Then they also made a comment about cost. They say that in terms of cost, once you make a holistic accounting of the actual cost of nuclear power, and remember this study was done before Fukushima, which provided a very different perspective to the world about costs, especially the costs when something goes wrong with nuclear power, which although people argue that the possibility of that is low, when it does happen, the costs are astronomical. But even before Fukushima, their conclusion was that in terms of cost, it did not pass the sustainability framework that they were evaluated. The other one had to do with international safety and security. The Commission study concluded that, to no surprise to people that look at nuclear power close by, nuclear presents a number of security threats, and this has to do with the fact that nuclear energy in general cannot be separated from its use for electricity from other uses that are not to do with energy. And the evidence in this country has been forgotten by young people, but people that have been at this for a while have clear memory that the government of India acquired nuclear technology from Canada under the Atoms for Peace program. And quickly, the first step they did was to divert that technology to create nuclear weapons. And then the government of Pakistan and their gentleman called Bhutto, the Papa of Benazir Bhutto, if you follow these things closely, he was Minister of Trade at the time in Pakistan, and he said, if India is getting this, so do we. And he got, under a similar arrangement, access to the atom, and very quickly Pakistani scientists diverted electricity generation to create nuclear weapons. And if you're not from that part of the world, you would be excused to forget that in the 2000s, they almost blew each other to smithereens over a dispute of territory that they've been fighting over for a while. And this type of concerns led the Commission to the conclusion that in terms of international safety and security, nuclear power was not a very, very good idea. Yes, sir.
On your previous slide, you mentioned moral hazard. Could you explain what that means in this context, please?
In the context of this research. It has to do with the next step, which is technological lock-in. At the end of the day, you have to make decisions about money. And the big problem that the Commission found was that if you decide to support nuclear power, there will not be enough money to do other things. That was one problem. The other one had to do with the fact that when you invest in nuclear power or any large generation technology, the return on investment will be based on electricity sales. So you immediately have an incentive to actually create technology that requires electricity cells. And this is the other point that the Commission objected to, that strategies of conservation and efficiency have to be complicated by the fact that you have a technology that for many decades will require income to be financed. So how does this relate to moral hazard? Again, to your question, is a situation that the Commission concluded you cannot be in the position of a priest that says, do as I say, but not as I do. And due to a number of these considerations that I've highlighted, it was decided that it's not a good idea. And I will read the conclusion, which addresses what you're asking very well. The majority view of the Sustainable Development Commission is that in consideration of these issues, there is no justification for bringing forward plans for a new nuclear power program at this time, and that any such proposal would be incompatible with the government's own sustainable development strategy. And that was the advice of the Commission to the ministers. I don't want to get too much in details about the politics of what happened afterwards. The Commission was disbanded a few years after all of this. But I do want to emphasize this aspect, which was there was a pause at the moment. People say you have to take a pause on these decisions. I go back to this slide to show you that I don't want to make a very set of polemic statements about this, but nuclear power development has experienced a different path from what was originally intended. And the countries that are still interested in nuclear power are precisely countries that are posing a huge moral dilemma to the possessors of the technology. So you have countries in the Middle East, for example, that want to assert their power through purchasing reactors. They will make the statement on the, and I don't mean to vilify the Middle East at all. I'm from Chile. In fact, in Chile, we were interested in nuclear power. Our government up to 2011 was interested in nuclear power. But make no mistake, that interest had very little to do with electricity generation, and it had much more to do with geopolitical considerations, because the Argentinians and the Brazilians have access to nuclear weapons, and the Chilean military feels that it would like to get a similar capability. So this is not a situation of one specific country, but I'm just highlighting that countries that, like Germany, for example, are no longer embarked on this direction. Maybe in the Anglophone world, these conversations cease to have too much salience. You don't hear that much conversations about Fukushima in here. I was not here on March 11th for the commemoration of the Fukushima, but you can tell me, were there big demos in Toronto? I was in Düsseldorf, Germany on that day, not precisely the biggest city in Germany, and there were huge demos in Düsseldorf and in all major German cities commemorating the accident of Fukushima. And I'm just trying to highlight that there was a conversation in the Anglophone world that got completely stopped at one point. And I don't want to spend the remainder of my time on this because I want to move into a different direction. But I do want to talk about Ontario, because this is where we live, and I want to emphasize a few ideas about nuclear power. Incidentally, that's a new sign of nuclear power, and it was decided a few years ago that it represented better the reality of the technology. Those of you that may remember, the top of the triangle was what used to be used, and it was decided a few years ago that it simply did not communicate the realities of the technology. I want to make 4 quick points about this. Nuclear power in Ontario and New Brunswick and Quebec, which are the provinces that have experienced this technology, has been very expensive. And the main thing to keep in mind in relation to my talk is that it's not very well suited for the development of nuclear power, of renewable energy. Yeah.
When you say have failed, what do you mean by failed?
Well, if I buy a car and that car does not start or fails to start after a couple of months that I bought it, I would not say I have a successful car, would I? I would say I have a lemon, right? And I would bring it back to the factory and they would give me another one or repair the lemon. So that's what I mean with the nuclear power plants. They all have had to be repaired, some months, some years after their operation, but every single one of them, reactors have had to be repaired. So that's what I mean. Now, in terms of the repairs, I guess the important point to make is that, coming back to my analogy about the car, cars are under warranty. So if it's within the first 100,000 kilometers, and if I buy an electric car, the batteries will have 8 years of warranty, blah, blah, blah. With the nuclear power plants, it's always been, oops, we made a mistake, we need to fix it, we need this much money, and the consequence has been, oops, we made a mistake, it's more money than what we thought, and it's going to take more time than we thought. So I want to talk very briefly about that, but before I say that, who pays for all of this? Well, you and I, all of us, we do every month, and there was a hearing recently started in the Ontario Energy Board, where Ontario Power Generation has approached the Ontario Energy Board to increase everybody's bills. By how much? At the moment, we're not sure, but the approach was that they wanted to increase every ratepayer of the province on average by $4 per month. How many ratepayers of that category there is? I looked it up, 4 million. And what is this for? This is to deal with the cost overruns of the Darlington Nuclear repairs as of last year. And I want to talk very briefly about that, if I may. So let's analyze what things have cost. So Pickering, as you know, was supposed to be closed down in 2014, but they've allowed it to continue to 2020. I personally think that's not a very smart idea for a number of reasons, but that's the status quo. The original repair budget for Pickering was to be $1.3 billion. What it actually ended costing it was double that, $2.6 billion. Bruce Nuclear, the original repair budget was supposed to be $2.8 billion, and the actual repair cost was $4.8 billion. So you can see that there is a pattern about the repair costs. Darlington Nuclear Power Plant, we're not sure because it's not yet been done, but there is talk about $6 to $10 billion. What I always say is, based on the previous experience of every nuclear repair, we could be looking at anywhere from $6 to $20 billion. And Angela Bishop has better figures than me on this, but I go by what's published. The Toronto Star, for example, has run a number of articles on these prices, and I simply quote what's available in the public record. And you can see in that article, nuclear watchdog, Darlington Nuclear overhaul. The Commission's decision isn't likely to end the debate over the project, which the Energy Ministry estimated in 2010, that's 5 years ago, could cost anywhere between $6 and $10 billion. That's for Darlington. And because I like to keep things current, this was recently in the Global Mail, an article by Konrad Jakubowski. Where is the logic in Ontario's power play? I don't precisely agree with everything that Konrad says, but I do like this quote. I'll read it to you. While selling part of the transmission business would generate a one-time cost haul for the government, it would dilute its share of Hydro One's profits in the future. To justify the trade-off, any proceeds from the sale should be reinvested in Ontario's electricity sector. The needs are gapping. For starters, Ontario Power Generation faces a $10 billion tab before interest, inflation, and inevitable cost overruns. We finally agree on something with this gentleman to refurbish its Darlington Nuclear Station beginning next year. And this was published Monday, March 16 in the Global Mail.
Jose, OPG's high cost estimates is that it will cost $12.9 billion. That's OPG's high cost estimates.
Angela, as I mentioned to you, I'm going by what's in the public record by established writers in this country.
I'm not challenging what you're saying.
I'm not challenging what you're saying either. I mean, we could get into an argument of will it be 6, will it be 10, will it be 20, but it's not going to be 0. And the point of the story is, should we spend that money on that? Or could we do other things? And that's the second half of what I want to discuss with you.
Can I also suggest that maybe people hold their questions until he gives his talk, and then we'll do a Q&A, okay?
Okay, let's make a deal. How many of you want to stay till 6 p.m.? Because I'm here for you. If you have to leave early, I finish early. If you can stay until 6, I'll stay till 6. It's up to you. If you want to ask me questions, ask me questions. But I have a lot of material, and I want to move away from nukes to talk about other important things, because nuclear is 2.5% of the primary energy mix. So for all intents and purposes, it's not precisely where it's at. This last article, I won't even spend too much time on it. I just find very flabbergasting that the company that is managing the Darlington repairs, it's none other but CNC-Lavalin. If you follow these things closely, CNC-Lavalin, it's actually precluded by the World Bank and all the World Bank associates to do any international business over the next 10 years due to its lack of corporate behavior in the international scene. I'm highlighting this because I find it perplexing, to be quite frank. I beg your pardon?
It's criminal behavior.
Thank you, you said it, not I. New nuclear. I know that an election was fought over this point, and one party wanted to build new nuclear power plants here in Ontario. The one that won say, no, we won't build new nuclear power plants. By the way, I have a bit of a problem with that statement, because if you repair something and you make it new, isn't that new? Yeah. So how does a repair turn into an old product? But never mind that part. New nuclear, just to remember, the Darlington Nuclear Power Plant, which was the last one built in this part of the world, it was supposed to cost close to $4 billion, $3.95 billion, but ended costing $14.4 billion. And I remember this because I was in this country when this happened. And this is the same nuclear power plant that now they want to repair to the tune of 6 to 10, to whom we can decide how many billions. But my point to you is, don't tell me nuclear is cheap, because if the original cost was 4 and it ended costing 14, that's not cheap, that's 4 times more. And if it's gonna cost 6 or 10 more for the same one, we're already almost 10 times more money than originally it cost. So let's do math in a salutary manner. I don't want to spend my time right now on this too much, but in terms of radioactive waste, there's still no solutions. Security concerns have already been raised, and I don't want to speak too much, and weapons proliferation, I already mentioned it. Other things that I think it's important, I personally think it's a mistake to go in this direction. I won't beat around the bush. I'm putting my opinion right there. But let's talk about other things, because that's what by the way, if you haven't seen what a nuclear power plant looks in Ontario, that's Darlington. And we have this idea that was developed a while ago, and I'll come back to it. Last thing, if I may, that I want to say about nuclear power is that there is a precedent in Canada of stopping the use of nuclear power. Quebec was one of the 3 provinces that had nuclear power, and as of December of 2013, it no longer has nuclear power. They listen to these type of arguments and say, we can put the money elsewhere, and we will not fix the nuclear plant of Gentil. There's a lot of data coming out of there of how you actually close a Canadian nuclear power plant, how much it costs, etc. So it's been done. So it is not out of the realm of the possibility that Point Lepreau in New Brunswick could follow that path, and that we could follow that path here. My personal advice, I know some people here already say that they like nuclear power, and I'm not a disrespectful person, but I do think we can find some ground in relation to Pickering Nuclear Power Plant. The Pickering Nuclear Power Plant was supposed to be closed in 2014. It's located in one of the most populated areas of our province. Reason would tell you that it's a good idea not to keep it running until 2020. And the analogy I make to people is, if I was to get into a plane to fly to Chile or to Germany, and the engineers doing the assessment of that plane told me, you know, we should have closed this plane down in 2014, but we look at the wings and the fuselage and everything looks okay, we're going to be running it until 2020. I can guarantee you I would not get into that plane. I would change my ticket to a different airline that doesn't have such approach to safety. And I'm sure you would have a similar conversation. And I personally think, at least in that area, we could agree that the precautionary principle should be used. Furthermore, close it and open up the 2 gigawatts gap that it would create for the solutions, conservation, renewables, district energy, etc. That would be a good idea. Okay, I want to go back to the conversation on primary energy. I spoke a heck of a lot about the 2% of primary energy, 2.6% that is provided worldwide by nuclear power. But I want to round this properly, speak a little bit about fossil fuels. Because in my personal opinion, the conversation on fossil fuels, it's not very well addressed often, and I want to highlight a few things. Number one, I show this to every public talk that I do because I think it's an important figure. If I was to do a test at the end of the presentation, this would be on the test. I would ask you to please explain this. So basically what it is, this pyramid reflects the reality of the human race since the Industrial Revolution, when we start using non-renewable resources in a very big manner. For the bulk of that period, we've been sitting at the top of the pyramid. Resources were cheap, easy to access, and easy to move around. So you could go to Texas, even here in Ontario, make a hole in the ground and get oil or natural gas relatively easily. Those days are over. We are sitting at the bottom of the pyramid in terms of non-renewable resources. And the only reason we can continue to do what we're doing is because we're putting increasing amounts of money into this. And the problem is that, so for example, at the bottom of the pyramid, it's the tar sands and all the oil and natural gas that it's trapped in very hard to get places. The problem with this strategy is that you're going to see increased accidents. Engineering comes with engineering caveats. And one of them is that when you put engineering resources to do complicated things, catastrophic things can happen. And as a person that lived a long time in the water or by the water, I find perplexing to see the oceans on fire. And you remember when this happened in Florida, not that long time ago, that the ocean was on fire. And for those of you that don't believe on climate change or don't think pollution is an issue, this is a reality that is undeniable. The other one is this one. The fact is we're going to be more people. Borrow, unless there's a gigantic catastrophe, which God forbids happens, because that's your brothers, your sisters, your children, or your grandchildren paying that price. We're gonna be a huge amount of people. What I love about this chart is it doesn't matter what age group you're in this classroom, you can find out how many people were around when you were a little boy or a little girl. And heck, I'm getting old, but when I was around, there were 4 billion people, and now we're 7 billion people. And we will likely be 9 billion people. How are we gonna satisfy human needs for that many people? If it's gonna be with nuclear power, there's some caveats, and if it's going to be with fossil fuels, there are other caveats. But I want to talk about something new, that it's happening, that it's affecting a lot of the solutions to these things. I want to talk about the North American oil economy. And I want to talk to you briefly about what's called the spread. In Europe, the people that do trading on oil tend to use a different index than we use here. They use the Brent index. Here in North America, we use the WTI, the Western Texas Intermediate, and the spread has been growing between these two things. Good news for Europeans, not so good news for North Americans. And I'm talking from an oil perspective right now. So it's hard to say how much or how long this is going to continue for, but at the moment, what it's leading is a situation that oil is cheap. It's cheaper than it's been for a while. And there is something else that is going to ensure that remains cheap for the near future, which is based on an article that was recently published, storage of oil. It's quite abundant, and at the moment, it's full. So you can see in the amount of barrels, we have close to 500 million barrels on a strategic reserve that the US can go like this and release to make sure that prices don't get too volatile. So what is the point of the story is that there is a glut of oil, particularly in the North American market in the near future. And this presents a huge problem because those of us that like solutions like renewable energy or conservation or efficiency are facing a reality of cheap oil for the next little while. So coming back to this primary energy mix, this has some very specific implications. And I want to talk further about that. I want to now talk about the 19% of the primary energy mix, which at the moment is satisfied with renewable energy. And I want to show you a very spectacular chart that I also show to all my students, which is what is available in terms of renewable energy fluxes compared to the primary energy. So this represents the primary energy demand and how it's being satisfied, right? Mostly fossil fuel. This, the little red cube, is that, the primary energy demand. And each of the other big cubes represents the flux of renewable energy that it's available. And if you take my course, Fundamentals of Renewable Energy, we basically teach you how to calculate this. And it's relatively simple. If you want to see the solar potential, well, we know that a 2 meter by 1 meter solar collector, that'll be 2 meters square, would be able to generate 300 watts, more or less. And if there is 3 hours or 4 hours, you can just do the multiplication of sun per day, you would get a kilowatt hour. Or 1.2 kilowatt hours, depending on how much sunshine you have over a day. So this is what this is talking about. It's saying the flux of renewable energy versus the need for primary energy, it's vastly different. So the challenge for the 21st century, and those of you that will live long into it, is how do we take advantage of this huge flux of renewable energy that has some specific considerations, technically and also in terms of finance and tenure. So in terms of renewables, the conversation, unfortunately, in this part of the world, it's too much on electricity, as far as I'm concerned. But we can use renewables for industrial processes, for buildings, heating and cooling, and for transportation purposes. And you hear very little about the last three uses, and too much, as far as I'm concerned, about the first one. So here is a factory in the Canary Island of Gran Canaria, where they use wind power directly to produce widgets. You can go to the Canary Islands, which is not precisely your high-income part of the world, or you can go to Belgium, where they're making trucks in the same manner, directly with renewable energy. But you don't need to travel so far. You can just go a little north of the city, and you will see a lot of these type of buildings that are using photovoltaic systems made in Ontario by Ontarians to produce electricity. So this is a small little, small medium enterprise that has become more profitable by putting solar and controlling its energy costs. These pictures have to do with some research we're doing at York University. You may have heard that we're building a metro, or the government of Ontario is building a subway that will go into the university. And what we're saying is, why would we build in the land that we have left over old type buildings where we could be making those buildings? The building on your right, it's not from Germany, it's not from Spain, it's from Markham, Ontario. And it uses no natural gas, it uses ground heat pumps and solar photovoltaics. And the secret, it's a very simple secret: high efficiency, lots of insulation in the basement, a lot of good windows, allows you to actually stay warm in the winter and cool in the summer. And the photovoltaics that I mentioned to you are all made now in Ontario, allows the building to be a net plus building, not a net zero building. This building is an asset for humanity. And the one on your far right, it's actually a condominium. The one on the left, it's a commercial building. And again, it's not in Germany, it's right here in Ontario, in Milton. And I'm not gonna say who's making them, because I'm not in the pocket of anybody, but I can tell you these people are making good money, because what they do is they find an area to build one such building, they cordon it off, they put walls on it, and they paint very pretty pictures saying, Canada's lowest condo fees. And they sell the entire building before actually putting one brick on the ground. So the first one, that's how they made their money. Now they print money. And it's a very interesting proposition, because you know, in this country, if you say Canada's lowest condo fees, and it turns out that it ain't, you get taken to court for misadvertisement. And it turns out that it is Canada's lowest condo fees. Turns out that being sustainable happens to also be really good for the pocketbook. So my question is, why are we not doing more of that? We're also doing the idea of using fleets of electric vehicles powered by renewable energy, and we do a lot of events at York University where we showcase this technology, and we're doing research on how we can have parking lots that look more like that rather than the current parking lots. And I'm not going to tell you too much about how we do it, but we're doing it, and it's really neat. It's all Ontario-made products, and if you're interested in this, I can explain to you a little further. My point is that all of it has to be mediated. It doesn't matter when we're using renewable energy for any applications. There needs to be a storage arrangement. If you don't have a storage arrangement, you cannot deal with the variability very well. And I mentioned to you, we just came back from Germany, where we were doing the biggest conference. I've never seen anything like that in Dusseldorf, way bigger than the Metro Toronto Convention Center, on all the topics that have to do with renewable energy storage. I was pretty impressed. And by the way, we started a journal that originally is called Energy Storage. And yours truly is in the editorial board of that. And the context of all of this is 100% renewables. To be able to reach 100% renewables, you have to have strategies to deal with the issue. And the issue, it's not too little, it's too much. And I'll explain to you in a second. That publication that you see on your far right is from an organization that belongs to the German government, that it's 100% renewable energy. And we have towns all over Germany and big cities like Munich that want to go 100% renewable energy. And I want to talk a little bit about that. If you want to know about this, just go to the British Columbia Sustainable Energy Association site, and they're so kind that they keep the webinars online until you come and see them. You don't need to be there, well, that's in the past, so you can go back. I want to talk a little bit about this campaign, if I may. How you doing break-wise? You need a break, or you're good? No? You're good?
Keep going.
Okay, we keep going then. Here is the new media details of the campaign, Facebook, Twitter, websites, blah, blah. If you want to take a look, I'm happy to. And the strategy, it's very simple. Remember this guy? I showed it to you already. That used to be very popular during the hippie times, 60s, 70s, 80s. Now we are changing it for this one. That is the campaign from a sort of knowledge perspective. We want that to become that. So if we can achieve that, we're going to be happy. And what we're trying to do is have, as soon as possible, renewable energy 100% in specific jurisdictions. That's the roadmap of the strategy of the campaign. And basically, it's very simple. Knowledge mobilization to show that it can be done, so the people that are in the position on doing it can feel empowered to do it, and so on and so forth. Create like a cycle. We have ambassadors. You know a few of them. I would expect the gentleman on the red shirts, the gentlemen, but clearly we need more women. The gender imbalance is atrocious, and I pointed out to the campaign. Nice guys they may be, but come on, 21st century, please. So Barcelona has become the place to do this type of work, and what can I say? I'm a lucky guy. I get to go as often as I can. Creates me a bit of problem at York University because they want me to teach and do other things. I'm just kidding. But Barcelona, it's become a very interesting proposition because they've embraced it, and we were a week ago, no, Friday last week, with the mayor of the city of Freiburg, which is the solar city of Germany, and the people from the city of Barcelona, and they shook hands and said, yep, we do an MOU, so we can collaborate on 100% renewable energy, and your personnel can come to Barcelona, we look after them, and our personnel can come to Freiburg, we look after them. So it was very nice to be able to broker that arrangement. What's happening, I told you about Germany already. In Germany, what they discover is that if you focus on this strategy, instead of taking the money out of your community, you keep it in your community. So the example I give about this for people to visualize it is, let's imagine we are here in Ontario in a village of 10,000 families, okay? 10,000 families. Each of those families would spend about $5,000 per year on energy costs. I'm talking just energy. And so how much money are those 10,000 families spending in energy? Well, $50 million, right, per year. And every 10 years, that's $500 million, $500 million that these families are. So if you're purchasing natural gas or oil or uranium, the money is going away from your community, not staying inside of your community. So what I do in my classes is I say, okay, now let's do the homework. You go do a spreadsheet, an Excel spreadsheet, tally up your electricity bills, your gasoline bills, et cetera, and tell me, am I far off on 5,000 or am I okay? Long story short, I've been doing this for 7, 8 years. I'm not that far off. It looks like a normal curve if you plot it. The tail of the left would be the people that are, say, for example, a single parent with 1 kid spending $2,000 a year. And in the other end, of the curve, you have people spending up to $15,000 a year. Several cars, a very profligate lifestyle, I suppose. And then there's the middle, and the average tends to actually fall on 7,000 rather than 5,000. But this year I did something radical, and I say, wait a minute, food is actually energy as well. So can you please tally up also your food? And I'm a guy that practices what I speak. I was flabbergasted. You know how much we spend on food in my family per month? It's atrocious. I'm ashamed to tell you. I'm ashamed. I'm actually worried about my personal fitness level. I'm eating way too much, apparently, because we're spending about $1,000 in food. We're 5, but I'm like, whoa, that's a lot of money, more than in any other energy. What is the point of the story? Is that once you tally those numbers, those are also local numbers. If you think about it, if you invest in local food strategies, that's also another form of energy. The money stays in the community. Long story short, the people of this community in Germany, Rhein-Hunsrück, close to the Rhine River, have concluded that it's possible. And look what they've accomplished. They wanted to be 100% renewable energy. They achieved it by 2012. By 2015, right now, they're at 300% renewable energy. And you may say, Jose, what kind of mathematics is that? Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's called export. They discovered that they could go way beyond 100% and sell the surplus to surrounding communities. And that's exactly what they're doing. And the Bürgermeister on this place, the mayor, has become a very popular guy because they went from throwing money to pollute the environment to keeping it for jobs in the community. So it's an interesting proposition. There are littler places like Cape Verde that are trying to follow the 100% renewable energy. And whom are they inspired by are the people from El Hierro, a Canary Island. This is the Canary Island of El Hierro. And I have to show you this because it remains as one of the most spectacular places on planet Earth. So I'm working with a man called Gonzalo Piernavieja, which is the director of the Technological Institute of the Canary Island, as part of the 100% renewable energy campaign. And this is what they did. So the island used to get its electricity from burning diesel. They're in the middle of nowhere. If you want to know where, just locate Morocco in the map and make a straight line into the ocean, and you'll like run into El Hierro. So they're getting oil from Spain, subsidized by the Spaniard customers, and they say, this makes no sense. From now on, we want to be 100% renewable energy, and this is how they did it. They installed wind turbines that are made by Germans, 5 of them. So when the wind power is available, the villages get wind electricity. And at the same time, they desalinate seawater, and they pump it into a top reservoir, which now they have full. And the minute the wind stops blowing, they release the water from the top reservoir to the bottom reservoir, and voila, electricity 100%, 24 hours, 365. This is what it looks like, the upper reservoir. When you're making such things, it makes sense to locate an easy-to-do hole. Nature did it here. It's called an old volcano. So they found an old volcano that was at 700 meters of altitude. Half of the hole was made free of charge by nature. And then they proceeded to dig to make a gigantic swimming pool. And this is what a gigantic swimming pool looks like, finished. And then they put the pipes that connect the top reservoir and build the bottom reservoir. That's the bottom reservoir. Same story, they found a suitable place and they began to do another gigantic swimming pool. Smaller than the top one, but gigantic nevertheless. They line it up just like you would, because you don't want to have the water infiltrating, because then it would be very expensive. And then you build a hydroelectric station so you can generate electricity. You always make a party when you're doing these things so that you can see a big party, because they got the machines from Switzerland, big party. And then they created a pumping station. So when the water is on the bottom reservoir, you just pump it back up. End of the story. And that's what a pumping station looks like. And that's where all the control systems, all designed by the Technological Institute of the Canary Islands. This is why the people of Cape Verde are paying attention, because they're saying, wait a minute, you guys are like us. You're not Germany, you're not the United States, and yet you manage. Awesome. This is what the pumping systems look like, and this is what the wind farm looks like. If you've never seen how a wind farm gets built, here you can see. You first do the foundations, not that difficult, rebar, little concrete. You need a crane. And the difficult thing was, imagine bringing to an island with a very small little harbor, gigantic wind turbines from Germany. The blades are gigantic, 14 tons each, bringing it 700 meters through roads like this. You manage. And then, remember what I mentioned to you, make a party, a big party. And this party took place in June 25th of 2014, and yours truly was a very lucky guy to be invited to this thing. They have not stopped there. They want to be electric vehicles because they want to make their island into the model of sustainability for all the island states. And they're open now to bring people to train them. So if you're thinking about a master's or a PhD, this is the place to come. It's spectacular what they're doing. However, it's not the only place that we have available. I'm not going to speak too much about this, but there are several. I already mentioned the city of Freiburg. If you're interested in urban planning with sustainability, best place in the world. You can go to Denmark, to the Folke Center of Renewable Energy, best place for small wind turbines, hydrogen, a number of other technologies building integrated photovoltaics. And if your budget or your time or your family arrangements doesn't allow you to go overseas, fear not. You know where Canada's Wonderland is? Everybody knows where Canada's Wonderland is, just up that way, close to York University. Soon you'll be able to get there by subway, almost. But there is the Codewright Center for Conservation and Renewable Energy, where you can see on the top they already have parking lots with photovoltaics for electric vehicles, buildings that don't use natural gas but use renewable energy and efficiency, etc. So if you look, you will find these places. We're creating an internship program, and I can talk to you a little bit more about that. Another partner, if you're interested in solar, is the Renewable Energy Institute of Mexico, where they specialize in concentrating solar, which is a technology that makes a lot of sense to generate electricity in very good solar insolation areas, or hot water in not so sunny places like Toronto. Okay, I want to talk about Ontario because I don't want you to think I'm not Canadian-centric. And in June of 2014, President Obama said, we're going to regulate carbon coming out of coal through an Environmental Protection Agency bylaw, if you want a regulation. Okay, great, fantastic. Well, we say that in 2004 in this province, and we no longer burn coal in Ontario. This is a big deal. They told us it could not be done. People would laugh me out of room saying, Jose, impossible. And April of 2014, we no longer burn coal in this place. And that's my favorite photo of the whole history. I'm a Gandhian pacifist. However, sometimes you have to have creative disruption. And that was beautiful.
Where is that?
That used to be the Lakeview Coal Generating Facility in Mississauga, Ontario. And they went 10, 9, 8, 7, and we all went, yay. What's really neat about that, it's not the creative destruction itself, but what happened. 27 billion bucks have been invested in renewables in this province. And we now have factories that make solar, that they make wind, even electric vehicles. Did you know we make electric vehicles in this part of the world? You'd be remiss and excused at the same time because they make them, but they don't sell them here. They export them directly to California. Toyota, I shouldn't have said that, sorry. Anyways, that is creative. And my point coming back to my commentary about nuclear power, is we need to ask ourselves, what do we prefer? Do we prefer to put money on Darlington and Bruce and maybe Pickering, 3 places in southern Ontario, or do we prefer to spread the money around the million square kilometers called Ontario? From an equity perspective, I think it makes more sense to put the money into renewables and conservation, because then everybody gets a piece of the pie. And if you're in North Bay, Thunder Bay, Wawa, Kenora, Kingston, et cetera, you will see no money whatsoever if the Darlington repairs occur. But if the same 6, 10, 20 billion bucks, whatever it's going to be, gets spent on the type of things I've been talking about, there'll be more equity, there'll be more employment, I think is a better solution. How you doing break-wise? Have I exhausted you? No? Because now we need to turn a little bit the page, because it's not enough to talk about renewables. You have to speak about quality renewables. What does quality renewables look like? That is the second point of my presentation. Remember, the first one is that the status quo, it's not the best option. But when it comes to renewables, we need to raise the bar a little bit and talk about community focus and how renewable energy can be harnessed to satisfy the needs of people. It's not enough to say that it has a low ecological footprint or less carbon will be spent. That's not enough, in my opinion. I do want to start with this. My friends of the International Renewable Energy Agency just released a very, very important piece of work on the prices of renewables. And that's one quote from the report. Perceptions that renewable power is expensive are at best outdated and at worst a dangerous fallacy. And I want to talk about drivers. First, I'll talk about quality later, but first drivers. So what are the potential drivers for renewable energy solutions in North America? Earlier I explained that the oil and gas situation does not make it very profitable. So we need to have policy to make it possible to have the things that communities desire. Let's look at North American climate change policy. That's a summary of North American climate change policy at the moment. You can read it, can you? So I don't like sarcasm. I'm not a person that criticizes for free. So I actually did something about it. We created a group of scholars, and we just released this, Acting on Climate Change. If you want to see us, we will be on Friday at the, what's it called, this thing? The Green Living Show? Yes. Where we're going to be releasing with Alternatives magazine this research.
What time, Jose?
I'll have to check my phone. I don't remember. I have it right here, but ask me in a sec. But the point is, we met in Montreal. What day is it today? Last week it was. And we met, and government representatives from every province came, including Glenn Murray, the Minister of Environment and Climate Change. And we did a workshop because we're a group of 60 scholars, you see. And we released these reports, very comprehensive. It has some very specific things that governments could do. But talking doesn't get you anywhere. We actually brought the government representatives and the politicians together so we could learn some of these things and how to do them better. I'll just give you a brief summary of what we talked about. So there you have North America. At the moment, which province has carbon pricing? Well, British Columbia. They have carbon taxation. They made a very smart move, and people here in Ontario are beginning to call this fee and dividend. So you put a fee on carbon, and then you provide the people a dividend for that fee. And it's working very good, very well in British Columbia. They generate $1 billion on annual income from these fees on carbon that they place. And they return that $1 billion to the British Columbian people. So what there's not to like? In a budget of $44 billion. It's more or less the budget of British Columbia. A whole billion, it's being taken care by a fee and dividend, and they're reducing carbon emissions. You may be aware that Quebec and California have signed an agreement to make a cap and trade system. I'm not going to speak too much about this because I did promise to leave time for questions. But my point to you is the province at the moment wants to do carbon pricing. And there's this, should we do carbon taxation? Should we do cap and trade? And they seem to be moving in the direction of joining Quebec and California. But two questions there. A, why would you want to do that when you can have a hybrid? A carbon fee and dividend could be put tomorrow in when the government, before the government releases its provincial budget. It could create a fee. This is the time to do it. Oil prices are low. You will not notice it at the pumps. Do it. And people can get a check immediately. And do it a hybrid system. You want to do cap and trade? By all means. Just keep on negotiating with them, and if you ever reach there, fine. But don't put all your eggs on that basket. Should that basket fail, which is what happened to Obama, it's called the Waxman-Markey law. Have you ever heard of that? No, because you probably don't study climate history. He had the Senate and the Congress to pass legislation, and instead of doing something radical, he actually did nothing. By the way, the other thing we have in place is already mentioned, the coal phase out in Ontario. Awesome idea. Even Jim Prentice in Alberta is now saying, sounds good. We should get rid of coal in Alberta, and it's good that he's doing that because it makes sense. Okay, so I know I say I wasn't going to talk about electricity too much, but it is the main drivers of renewable policy in North America at the moment. I didn't choose it, it's the way it is. We have what's called renewable energy portfolio standards, net metering plus, and feed-in tariffs, which is what we have here in Ontario. So these are the states that have renewable portfolio standard policies. I don't intend to do an entire class on policy, but just, it's a target. So thou shall use X% from renewables, and then they do either tendering or power purchase agreements. So you can see it's rather popular in the US. Net metering, it's a little more cumbersome. They basically say, put a solar system in your house, and if it generates more than what you actually use, we'll credit your account. Well, not a good idea. When you're dealing with heritage assets that are already paid for, like for example in Quebec or Manitoba hydroelectricity that it's already paid for, it costs what, 4 cents, 2 cents? You can tell me, Angela, you do these numbers. 3 cents in Quebec per kilowatt hour. Well, right now in Ontario, we're paying 35 cents per kilowatt hour from solar. So it's not gonna really work too well. So a lot of people say, yeah, you got a point. Let's do what they call payment to customer generation for monthly net excess generation under net metering, what I call net metering plus, which basically if you have an excess, we pay you the cost on the margin. It works sort of. My country of Chile is doing this, and it's leading to a small little solar revolution. And in Canada, I put it in the map because Ontario is leading the pack with the feed-in tariff program. In another occasion, maybe I tell you how we became from SOP to feed, standard offer programs to feed-in tariffs, but that's an entire hour conversation. We'll never get there. What are the results so far in North America? With modest policy. We don't have very good policies like the Germans do. The Germans have cap and trade, German taxation, they have renewable energy laws, they have a phase out of nuclear. What's the result? 75 gigawatts of, but this is what's happening. Even with modest things, not bad. The United States, because of its sheer size, it's investing more than pretty much everybody else except China. $36 billion, nothing to sneeze at. Canada, not bad, a few billion behind, but not bad for a small little country of 34 million people. We're 10 times less than the United States. We happen to be the second biggest country in the world, but that's a whole different story. And this is neat. Which nation is more attractive to investors interested in renewable energy? The US comes as first and second, depending on what time of the year, whether credits are approved or not. And Canada, we're not too bad. We're 5 and 9. But I guess if we paid attention, if we had a federal government that paid attention, we may actually be pretty attractive. Why not? We have the second biggest country in the world, huge resources. We just need to provide an arrangement so it's attractive. Energy storage, if you're interested in renewables, as I am, and you want to deepen your understanding, I suggest you look this up. The Department of Energy Global Energy Storage Database, best of its kind. Yeah, of course. Remember, I'll leave this with Meta, so you can take a look at it. But if you just put DOE Global Energy Storage in Google, you don't need the URL, just, and then you'll find this database. And then you can click and see which policies are good for storage of renewable energy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I will save you time. The countries and projects that are in the database, you see them there. The project types, the status. I'm not going to go too much in detail because I need to close this up, but this is a graph generated by the database. And you can see there's a peak of projects with storage on the 21st century, right? And if you judge this at prima facie, you would go, wow, this is great, things are working out. Well, yes and no. If you look at installed capacity, you can see that the bulk of the storage projects was storage with hydroelectric storage that was done prior to the 21st century. So this looks good. That doesn't look too promising. You can see the peak is, in terms of capacity, rather minor. But you can look at what type of projects. I don't have time to go through this in detail, but others, just to emphasize that most of the projects in North America at the moment that have been installed in terms of the bulk of installed capacity have to do with pumped storage. Similar to what I talked about in El Hierro, but a little more old-fashioned than that. And then you can look at projects. For example, this one is in Alaska. This one, I chose it because it's in Toronto, hydrogenic power to gas project. You know, you can make hydrogens. But the last thing I want to talk to you, it's about the quality of projects themselves. And with that, I will close my presentation. So I'm working with Woodstock Hydro on a project that is called the White Lanes Microgrid. And because you have to be fair in life, you have to acknowledge the funders. So it is you're paying for it, the ratepayers of Ontario, through a Ministry of Energy funding. And what we're trying to do there is we're trying to combine solar technologies with storage, in this case lithium batteries, so we can have 100% renewable energy, and specifically for electric vehicles. And I want to spend a little bit of time talking about this. You probably don't know where Woodstock is, but it's not the one the hippies went. This is the Canadian Woodstock. Take the 401 and you make it there. And it's right there, in case you want to know where it is. And that's what it looks like. So we're making a microgrid of renewable energy, storage, and electric vehicles. And the idea is to then have dispatchable 100% renewable energy, address electric vehicles. This is what the facility looks like. You can see the electric vehicles. Due to time constraints, I'm not going to speak about the different aspects. If you're interested in the engineering, I'm happy to discuss it. But I actually want to discuss the engagement process that we're having with the community, because I think that's what matters the most. I'm not going to talk about this. I want to talk about engagement. So money that it's not just going to technology, it's going into community engagement. So I'm going to show you part of the community engagement strategy. This video was made for little kids. So what we wanted to do was to engage little kids on this. Now we're filming the Smith family, the real Smith family, on Cinema Verite. So, you know, grown-ups like yourselves will actually get to see the family and how they're interacting. And what we did is, this is part of an effort that we're doing with the Royal Ontario Museum. So if you're interested in audiovisual communications and you have finished your undergraduate or master degree, we have a program, it's called Environmental Visual Communications, and it's offered at the Royal Ontario Museum with the College Sir Sanford Fleming. And we take about 20-25 students, and we're gonna focus on teaching young people that take the program, or all people, doesn't matter, we're not ageist, how to do this type of audiovisuals. And the other thing that we did is we don't use the money just for technology. You can see here we did a sustainable energy expo in Woodstock. Woodstock became the first Tesla supercharging station. And I'm almost done with this, Meta. I just want to show this very quickly, because community engagement's where it's at. You can't just use money for technology. You have to work with the community. So what we did is we created an expo where the people from Tesla had their Tesla superchargers, the owner of the hotel where the Tesla superchargers were, and everybody had booths. You can see little booths here, you know, where we spoke about wind power, solar power, storage. And then people that came, we gave them a passport for the Sustainable Energy Expo so they could go to the different areas. And then we did another film that I want to show you quickly, if I may, that talks about these things. Is it on the screen?
Imagine a community that is no longer reliant on fossil fuels, but rather a place that draws all of its energy from renewable sources. What was once imagination has become a reality for a few communities on our planet, while others are striving to reach the goal of going 100% renewable. Along this theme, Woodstock Hydro and the Woodstock Chamber of Commerce recently hosted a Sustainable Energy Expo. The expo brought experts in their field from solar PV to biofuel, wind energy, energy storage, and others, all under one roof for residents to learn about smart technologies and ask questions in a personal setting. Guest speakers included Dr. Jose Echeverry from York University's Environmental Studies program. Dr. Echeverry has traveled the world working with communities who have boldly gone towards becoming 100% renewable. Dr. Echeverry says the first step is making a plan.
You need to know where is your energy coming from, where is it going. You need to have a baseline to be able to know exactly what percentage of your current energy comes from renewable energy, even if it's zero. If it's 2%, it doesn't matter. But then you develop a plan that you will grow that base on a monthly, yearly, decadal base. But the point is that it is feasible to store renewable energy in a number of ways, and I'll show you a couple of ideas about that.
Dr. Echeverry's speech in Woodstock comes at a time when the city is embarking on a municipal energy plan. One of the first communities in Ontario to get approval and funding to start the plan, Chief Administrative Officer David Creary says the municipal energy plan will be a year to 18 months in the making.
This is a tremendous undertaking, and it is going to take some time. Every home, every business, every store, every church, the energy use for the entire community, including the electricity, the natural gas usage, as well as the fuel usage in the city. And what we will attempt to do is to document on a citywide scale that energy usage and develop base mapping, heat mapping, so to speak, that identifies areas where energy usage is greater.
The ultimate goal of the municipal energy plan is to find ways to conserve and to harness energy flows to serve the needs of all citizens.
That can be through conservation programs. It can be through the introduction of additional renewable energy sources in the community. And so this is a very big picture, broad scale view of the entire community.
I also say that sustainability is a coin that has two sides. In the one side, it's renewable energy. On the other side, it's efficiency and conservation. It doesn't matter how much money you have. The first thing you can do is look at how you use energy in your home, in your business, and try to lower the amount of electricity and energy that you need.
Dr. Echeverry shared his equation for reaching 100% renewable. Find efficiencies, plus saving money, plus reinvesting those savings into renewable energy equals sustainability and prosperity.
I encourage people to do this. I mean, it's a very nice example for yourself and also for your descendants. Your family will appreciate that you're investing on their future. The key take-home messages are these. Do your own research. I think it's very important for young people, old people, everybody to do your own research. Then policy implementation, monitoring and development are essential. If we don't have that, nothing will happen. I think it'll become clear from what I said earlier. And the quality of projects themselves matter a lot. If you get involved on this, don't do crummy things, because you will destroy, you will poison the well that feeds everybody. And the most important part of the equation to me is empowerment. What can you do about these things? And right now, the key things that you can do, please analyze what I've been talking about. And if you reach a conclusion that is similar to mine, write to the Premier. Angela was talking about, and this is where I contradict Angela a little bit, she was saying, send a form that she has, and that's a great idea, but don't send a form. Actually, do a very revolutionary thing, is grab a pen and write a handwritten letter to her. That is the 21st century radical thing to do. The pen is mightier than the sword. And those letters, those handwritten letters, are worth 10,000 times more than emails, any other mass mailing, etc., because they'll have to read what you write. And probably the Premier may or may not read it, but all the staff of the Premier will go through the food chain to make sure that they write back to you. And she says right there that I'm interested in your thoughts about how we can work together to build a better province for all Ontarians. Please send me your ideas, questions, and concerns. Look forward to hearing from you, Kathleen Wynne. Well, there's her address. I honestly couldn't emphasize enough the importance to write to her right now. A lot of the views that I hold, I know that they're not popular. But that's why you pay me a salary as a tenured professor. Sometimes we need to say things that may not be popular, but they nevertheless are true. And now if we can open it for collaboration, and I end with an invitation. If you're interested in these things, come to the Renewable Cities Forum. It's going to be awesome. We're going to have the best mayors from Europe, Canada, and the United States. And that's one URL you should write down, renewablecities.ca. It'll be in Vancouver in May, and the best mayor in Canada will be there. He has a company called Happy Planet. Anyways, thank you very much.